Okay. Okay, for our centering today, we're taking elements from lots of the centerings we've done. So just try this. I'd like you to stand if you can. If you're sitting, then you can still do this sitting. I'd like you just to rock backwards and forwards and start to reduce the movement until you come to a standstill. And you can open up your palms, and I want you to be aware of what's underneath your feet. And then I'm going to ask you to slowly scan your body. So starting with your feet, to be aware of what you feel there, the connection with the ground. But maybe you've got a sore toe or something that brings its attention to you, but just paying attention to your feet. And then your calves, and your thighs. And if you can relax it, relax it. And then your buttocks. And your stomach. Just let it loose for once. Don't try and hold it in. And up to your chest. And your shoulders. And if they're not hanging completely loosely, let them go. Feel the weight of your arms at your side. Pay attention to your biceps, your forearms, and your fingers. And maybe there's a little bit of a tingle in the palms of your hand and your fingers. Maybe not. Just notice what's going on. And then come back up to your neck. Relax that. And your facial muscles. If your jaw isn't hanging loose, let it hang loose. Muscles around your eyes, make a conscious effort to relax those. And your forehead. And then just notice how things are quietening in your body. Maybe notice the sounds around you. You can hear the ticking clock, fan on my PC. The silence that's in the house. And notice your breathing. Notice that as you notice your breathing, it probably slows and gets longer. And notice that as you just spend this time focusing on your needs and what's going on with you, the time slows, and your mind becomes calmer. And how you notice more. And hopefully you can bring that feeling of calm and peace to this session. Well, it worked for me. I'm suitably chilled now. I hope you are too. I want want to start by talking a little bit about who's responsible for your learning. Who's responsible for the path you take? Let's have some views on that.
Me, I'm responsible for the path that I take.
Absolutely.
I'm responsible.
Yeah. Is there anybody who's not responsible for the path they take? Anyone just choosing to delegate that responsibility to parents or senseis or employers or wives, partners, husbands, friends? I hope not. You have to live the life that you want to lead, and that means you've got to make good choices, and you have to practice making good choices. They don't happen by chance. You've got to start thinking about where you want to go and making the choices that are going to lead you in that direction. Thoughts? It's important, isn't it? So sometimes that means you're faced with some harsh choices, right? So Joe, you're facing you've faced it, this decision of kind of walking away from your Aikido community and saying, that's not where I want to go, I'm going to do my own thing. That's a brave and hard decision to make. Vitali, life threw you a few curveballs. You didn't intend to be where you are sitting in a wheelchair a lot of the time, but you just get on with it. Steve, you didn't choose to be blind, but you decided you were never going to give in to that, and you were going to make a positive life and contribute to, not only to your life, but also to society generally. And I'm sure that's true for the rest of you. You know, I don't know your story quite so well, Finn, but John, clearly you have. And I suspect life's thrown you a few curveballs over the years, but you've carried on battling forward and trying to make the best of it and stayed positive. So just keep doing that. And remember that, you know, often life throws you a curveball because you're ready for it. It's a chance to put into practice the things that you've been learning on the road to get to where you are. And I'm speaking, I think, to a fairly select group tonight, in the sense that you have all taken great responsibility for not giving up your learning over the last year. You've actively been seeking to continue your journey however you can. So in a way, I'm preaching to the converted, but I just want to celebrate your effort and remind you of why you do that. It's not for me, it's for you. And it's right that it should be for you. It's lovely that I can be with you and follow my path with you, but we're all responsible for ourselves and for making good choices. Simple as that. Okay, is there an exercise that you would like to look at that we could play with? Anything?
Are you talking about technique?
It could be, John, it could be technique, or it could be, you know, a warm-up type exercise. It's whatever you want it to be.
Well, Taisabaki and tenkan and tenchin movements are always interesting, but technique-wise, shihonage is always an interesting technique.
Okay, well, let's try and do a little bit of all of that at some stage in the next 20 minutes or so. Okay. Take my partner with me. So that's my partner, and I'm doing I wouldn't get to their side. So it depends how they're holding me as to how I can do that. What do I mean by that? Depends how they're holding me. I mean energetically. Are they trying to push me down? Are they trying to pull back? Are they trying to just hold me where I am? Are they trying to lift me up? And how will that change how I enter? Now, this is one you do have to answer.
Can I ask one thing?
Yeah.
Is there a difference on the way that I offer my hand? Just like if I offer this, or could I invite them for a grab and a direction?
It's a really good question. So if I offer like that, I think it's more likely that someone will try and push down on that. So if you put your hand out like that and try to resist pushing it with your other hand, it's actually quite hard to do. But if you offer like this, more sideways on, I can resist that quite easily. So I don't know that people consciously think, oh, it'd be easy to push it down if I offer like that. But consciously or unconsciously, I think you're encouraging them to do that. Let them come into your space. This is more, no, you're not coming into my space. So here they're more likely to push you this way or pull you that way to take you off your balance. Does that answer your question, Joe? Okay. So I'm going to assume for the moment that I actually am offering and I'm encouraging to push down. So the first thing that happens is that my hand goes down. And then I direct my fingers towards me. I don't know if you can see that from there, but it's going to go something like that. Because I want to direct their energy in that direction. And at that point, I pivot and step back and draw back so that I'm right by their side. I don't want to be in front. I don't want there to be a big gap between us. I want to be right in their position. I don't want to be behind them. Behind them, okay? I want to be right by their side. Only when you're right by their side can you really come together and draw them forward without force. So I could go in any other position, and if I'm stronger than them, I can move them probably. But if I want to work as a team, I mentally and physically have to put myself in my partner's position. Does that make sense? So as soon as I separate, then it becomes, we go back into one-on-one, and it becomes a physical game again. It's kind of easy to show you the physical side. It's not that complex. And now I've done it on the other side. I drop my hand, I point my fingers, I pivot, I draw back, and then I draw back with the other foot. So my hips are going through 180 degrees to end up right by their side. The bit that's harder to teach without feel is what I'm doing with my head, what I'm doing in my mind, in my spirit, in my energy field. Call it what you will. And I can tell you, and if you were here, you could feel it, but I can only describe it to you, and then you've got to try it and see what you can do with it. Okay? So when I physically join together, okay, I mentally try to create a picture of one. So it becomes one body to me. I imagine two bubbles coming together to form a bigger bubble, if you want a picture, if that helps you. So once it's one bubble, whatever intent I put into that is transmitted to the rest of the bubble. And if it's forward, we go forward. If it's back, we go back. If they've put the intent before me, so they're going forward, well, I'll go forward and then I'll draw them off to the right or the left as is appropriate. So there's always this sense of joining together. And if you're still wondering what on earth I'm talking about, just think of those moments when you're close to someone that you really care about. Yeah, and when you're holding them around the shoulders, or you're holding their hand, or some tender moment like that where you might be walking through a park together and you find that your steps synchronize, and you just feel like you're both going along together. There's no one deciding which way to go. You just are going. It's like that. So there's a definite desire to join together with this person. It's not I'm going to do something to this person, but it's a desire to join with that person. I got to stop and ask, does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Yes, the joining of energy.
Yes, it is a joining of energy, but it's an energy that cares. It's not one of control. It's one, I need to join together with this person to resolve this situation. It's as simple as that. When you're battling against each other, one will win, the other will lose usually. But if you can come together, you hope that you can steer it in a direction that both parties are happy to go. You know, that's what we're aiming for. So what happens if someone's trying to lift my hand up? Maybe they're trying to open up my body so that they can strike with the other hand. Well, then I let it lift up, and then I drop it down and I come in. So with the up comes a down, and then it's exactly the same foot movement. With the up comes a down, and the same foot movement. Think about the up. There's a point where I'm stretching and it becomes uncomfortable, and if somebody were holding on to me with my hand right up by my ear hole, there's no way they're going to be able to hold on to that. I've either brought them in too close and they've struck me already, or they've had to let go. So the up is where you feel you connect on top of the wrist and you can feel tension, like a suspension bridge. There's no slackness. You've just taken to the top of where they will go and where you can go comfortably. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you're looking to feel their wrist on top of yours. There's kind of a slackness lower down. You can feel the point on my own arm. Definitely there's a point, they're the same length, so no surprise. I can easily get to the point where this one doesn't want to lift anymore. And remember, this one sitting on top of this one, so I'm always slightly lower when I'm doing lifting than the other person. So they're slightly more stretched than I am. I've probably just taken beyond where they want to go. What happens if they're trying to pull me towards me? I just go with them. And then I turn. Same foot movement. They're pulling, so I just go. And turn as they're pulling me. What happens if they're pushing in? I can't do this to the chair because the chair's static. But I just turn. They're coming in, I just go. Once we've come together here, these are little points, but it's important to know. I don't want to have my hands outside of my hip width. They're in control here. I want to bring my hands in front of my center. Not right here. You can try this actually. This just feels a little more tense on the shoulders than if you bring it to there. It's where your hands naturally want to go, in fact. If I were offering you a present, unless it's a very big present, I probably wouldn't do it like this. I probably want to support the weight from here. This is the best place to hold the weight in front of you and maximize your power. Where are your fingers pointing? Towards your center line. Right? So now you're in control. If your hands are here, their hands will be slightly outside. At least the hand that you're holding or they're holding onto, that will be slightly outside of their body. So who's going to be the most centered and coordinated person? Not them. Again, just put your hands here and imagine trying to control somebody leading you off in that direction from here. It's not so easy, but from here, right, they can pull my hands and I can just stand here. Terribly difficult when you've not got somebody to test this out with. But, you know, when you get back into your pairs, or if you've got a partner, this is a really simple exercise. Just hold your hands here and get your partner to try and pull this hand out. And you'll find that if you're extending, you can hold this position very well. And then try doing it from here. And can you stop them taking you further? Well, I think you'll find the answer is absolutely no. So what happens is, you feel, I start leading from here, the partner's here, so what do? They start to follow because they can feel their center going and they want to get it back. And then you've started the movement. You can guide them round and do whatever it is that you want to do. Is there anything else that I can say about that that would be useful? Are we happy? Any questions? Any thoughts?
I have an observation. When I open my arms like this, my chest shrinked.
Yeah.
And when I come back to my center, it opens up. So
yeah. It creates a tension. I'm trying to do what you're doing, Joe. It creates a tension when I do that. Across my shoulders and across my shoulder blades, which I don't like. Equally, I don't want to close down. This is kind of a protective gesture, isn't it? It feels small. I don't feel I can go anywhere from here or here. I feel like I'm protecting myself. And it's just not going anywhere. It's going on the defense. Here, I suddenly feel energetic and that this is a place of possibility and potential. I'm in control of myself and whatever's going on around me as far as I'm able to be. Obviously, the nuclear bomb goes off, I'm probably not going to save me, but if I've got a partner holding my wrist from here, I'm comfortable with that and I can start to lead that into a move. Okay. Any other observations or comments? John, thoughts?
It's just like holding a tray in front of you and keeping the drinks on it.
Do you know what? That's the first picture that was ever created for me on an Aikido mat, and I still use it today. So when I'm doing Katate Kosadori Kokanagi, it's Katate Dori Kokanagi. You lead them round, you put the tray on the floor, you throw everything up in the air, and then you settle. So that picture's worked well for me for many, many years.
Yes.
And I never knew why that was beneficial, but it seemed to work pretty well. So now you know the reasons why we want to hold the tray there. You hold the tray like that, everything falls straight through it. And it's not very good for the tray and not very in control of the situation. Here I'm in control of the tray and I'm in control of myself. Okay. Right, so let's have a look at shihonage. I'm going to imagine that somebody's grabbing me cross-hand. So right to right or left to left, Katate Kosadori. So the first thing I do when somebody grabs me here is I rotate my wrist. Okay, so here I'm able, Joe, it comes back to your point. If I were like that, then you'll be able to push in and I wouldn't be able to do this defense. I'd have to come up with another technique like the one I just showed you with the tray. But I'm here. So this protects, because I've got an unbendable arm, this is going to protect me from having the partner enter. I might have to back off to control my center. if there's a lot of energy, I might have to turn. But at least I can preserve this space in front of me and keep them away from doing me too much harm. And we're always looking for the martial realism in what we do. It's important that the technique works and we're aware of the holes we create if we don't do this right. So I'm extending ki, and my first movement is just to rotate my wrist. And my aim is to connect with the other person so that I've got a nice, it's not going to show very well on the camera, a nice strong bond there. Okay? I don't want my hands flapping away from this. That allows the person in. I want to link with them. I want to come together. This is one of those moments where you create a line of energy. It's not two lines anymore, it's one line of energy. And this movement allows me to change the direction of what's going on. So I can't come into you this direction because your energy is coming this way. But what I can do is I can turn the point of the spear. Okay, so I'm the attacker and I'm looking to thrust in, okay? If I push with this end, can I get in? Absolutely not. But can I turn it? Yes, I can turn it. It's hard. I'm really trying to resist at this end, but it's hard to stop it being turned because this is the tip. This is where people are extending the energy from. So if you can control that, you can begin to take control of the situation. So I just want to pause for a second and check that that makes sense to people. People are happy?
Yeah, I think it's the energy, the whole thing becoming one.
Yes.
And if you a fraction out, it won't work.
If you're a fraction out, you're still open to being hit.
It's still open, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when I come together, so this hand comes to bind, I'm looking to get my thumb into the crease of that wrist. Okay, so the only way I can really show this is by putting my thumb across the line of that wrist and then turning and putting a wrist lock on myself, which is a bit dark. And it wouldn't work like this if you had another partner, because what you're going to do is you get into that line and then you're going to create a circle. Okay, so this comes down in and then you lead them away from your center. But notice how my center moves as I do this. And then I lead them down. Now, if I'm the attacker and I've got into this position, what do I want to do? I want to come up, don't I? So the down creates an up. And the up allows me the space to turn. One of the things that Caitlin and Steve will probably tell you is that when people do shihonage, I say, are you doing Caribbean Aikido? Because you see people doing shihonage like this to get underneath the arm. And of course, that's stupid. They only have to put the weight of their arm on top of you and you're going to collapse. So you need to be able to pivot like that. And you will only be able to pivot like that. And honestly, it doesn't matter what height they are. If they're really short, you might have to go a bit lower. You might have to come onto your knees even, or potentially drop your center. Okay, but anyone that's close to your height or taller than you, it doesn't matter. By creating this instability in them, while they're busy gaining their center, you're pivoting. Joe, you took a long step there as you pivoted. Try just pivoting on one foot. Yep, better. So it's literally a turn, boom. So, boom. This is going outside of them, but in front of my center. I turn my center back, and then I pivot till I'm looking down their back. If this is their face, and that's their back, I want to be positioned here. I want to be positioned where I'm looking directly down their back. Why don't I want to be here? Why don't I want to be there?
They're still in front of you.
Yeah, they are kind of. And why is that a bad thing, John?
Well, you both got the same technique on at that point.
Potentially. Potentially. Normally, would you agree that when we do shihonage, it's normally a two-handed technique? Yes?
Yes?
Yeah, okay. So my two hands are now holding their one hand. What does that leave free for them?
Well, they can walk you, can't they, with the spare hand because you're tied up holding it.
Well, it depends how well you've done it, of course. If you're perfect, maybe it's going to be fine, but a lot of people aren't perfect. This hand here is still free to whack me because I'm in front of them. That hand comes out of play when I'm standing behind them. So there's a martial reason why I would want to be there, but also mentally, this is still, it's going to make you more inclined towards an us and them situation. Them over there and me over here. They're looking this way, I'm looking that way. It's not so easy to become one with them here. But when I'm here and I'm looking straight at their body, it's very easy to be focused on them, entirely on them. So whilst physically I am dropping my hand down in front of my center line here, I'm actually focused on their head and dropping energy down through their body. So it's a straight line down through their body, down to their feet, and down through the ground.
That's the fourth element in four-cornered cut, where most people just do three.
Yeah. So I would say that the majority of shihonage you see is about locking joints and forcing the technique on very often. And it's very dangerous. I mean, I don't know about you, John, but definitely my shoulders are a lot weaker than they would have been had I not done Aikido for 37 years. And much of that's down to being abused when people did shihonage on me, and I practiced with a nice lot. So they weren't trying to abuse me, but it's just quite easy to tear shoulders. You're very vulnerable once you get that shoulder. Physically, it's quite easy to impose this technique. So if my rule of thumb is a successful technique is one that I absolutely can take you down to the ground, but you're left wondering, well, I don't really know why I went down, because you can't feel it.
Right.
And I certainly don't want you to go down yelping. It should be relatively painless, but it needs to be powerful too. I'm going to give Caitlin a little bit of space to say whether I'm talking out of my bottom here, because she's had the chance to actually receive it. Caitlin, can you back me up on this or say, well, actually, that's not quite right, Sensei? You're good. You're good with that statement. Okay, good. You're not going to make a liar of me. That's good to know. Yeah, so it's my journey, really. You know, doing things like Yonkyo and Nikkyo, which we all know, which when they're applied can be incredibly painful, to find ways of doing these techniques where it's nothing to do with manipulating the body. It's about moving with the other partner and moving their energy with my energy so that it's successful, powerful, but painless. And I don't claim that I achieve all of those things all of the time. It's just the path I'm trying to get to.
Balance loss.
You have to be quite creative and think about it a lot to think about how you can do that. Okay, so all of you will have received techniques that were painful. And all of you will have given techniques where it was painful. This is where you take responsibility. You have to go away and think about, well, why was it painful? What were they doing to me that I wish they hadn't done? Because when people make mistakes on one end, it's not just them that learn, it should be you. And if you're making the mistake, if they're yelping, and you shouldn't be proud of that, in my opinion, you should be thinking about, what did you do that made them yelp? Did you really move with their body? Did you go faster than them? Did you just use sheer muscle power? Did you go against the joint? How could you refine it so that you didn't do that again? And this is where the fine lining comes in. This is where the mindfulness comes in. So you can be mindful about the way you receive technique and the way you give technique, or you can just say, oh, it's a good thrash and clatter about the mat for an hour or two, give it no thought at all and go back next week and make the same mistakes. Again, I will call on the old timers and say, I bet you know students who look just the same now as they did 20 years ago. There are plenty of those around. But if this is a journey, one with purpose, then every lesson, every interaction is an opportunity to pick up something useful that you can take away and eliminate the things you don't like and bring in the things that you do like.
It's all about resolving a situation, not creating it.
Exactly.
You know, if you go with pain, who are you hurting?
Yeah, well, right. Obviously,
Because
intent is to give you pain, but to respond with pain is just creates more pain. And when does it stop?
yeah.
It creates a chain of events that often leads to a very, very bad outcome. But if you can respond to somebody trying to give you pain with care and attention and show that you're in control of the situation, but don't abuse it, I think
there should be a stage where the person doesn't want to keep attacking anymore,
yeah,
without what's the word? Without sort of forcing that issue.
Well, that's the idea, Steve, isn't it? We want to create a situation where someone's desire to do you harm disappears.
Yeah.
Because you're able to give them something which they weren't expecting, really of a positive nature. I think that's really what Aikido is here to teach us. You know, we have the chance to respond with violence if we want to. We've been doing that as a species since time began. Can we come up with a more meaningful answer? Something that, next day we're not feeling bad about, or just we bury because we don't want to think about it. But actually we can feel good about it. And again, you have a chance every day in your interactions with people to leave people feeling good about that rather than bad. Even when it's a neutral interaction, you can elevate it so it becomes a good interaction if you want to. If you make that your habit, I think you'll find that the way your life goes completely changes. Because what you give, you get. Definitely. And I think I would cite the last year as a brilliant example of that. So I've put effort in, but boy, what a lot I've got back from all the people that have joined and participated. It's been brilliant, not just for you, but for me. So, I gave, I got back. And I think that's a good rule to follow. So I've done far too much talking. Any final questions, thoughts, observations?
Great session as always, Sensei. Thank you.
Very kind. Thank you, John. Anything else?
Yes, thank you. It's a celebration for us to be with you in this community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Talking of celebrations, a sort of Brazilian influence is suggesting we should have a little bit of a party at some stage. I'm up for that, so perhaps we should organise that soon. Across the Tuesday and Thursday session. So obviously, I hope as many of you can
There's
attend.
no throwing the tray, okay? Please, that would be a
Great party. If people are throwing trays, it must be a good party.
it would be a waste of drinks. No, I'm not doing that.
All right. So I am going back on the mat on Thursday. I will see if I can find a way of getting this, at the very least, this laptop set up. I don't know how it's going to work, but I'll try and work with this for now. I want to get a better setup. But maybe one or two of you can come along and say, it's really not working, or actually that wasn't too bad. At least it's a start till we do something better. And I might even have Caitlin on the end. That'll be good. So yeah, it might not be many more than Caitlin, but we'll have a start anyway.
Great.
What time will that be, Sensei?
When will that be? That'll be Thursday at 7. So for the moment, it's going to take the place of the Thursday sessions. I'll move the Thursday sessions to a Wednesday, not every Wednesday. I've got to find some sessions to get, but obviously I'll keep you all posted. All right. So I'm going to wish you